Okay, let's look at question 10. Before we do question 10, let's identify our input and output variables before we do anything. And so, since h is the inside the parenthesis, we know that height is the input in feet, and t is on the outside, so that means t equals time, and I'm going to assume seconds. It says seconds down here, so this must be seconds. Okay, so t of 850, so let's plug in 850 into our equation and come up with an answer. So we end up with 3.54 seconds, and it says if the penny is 850 feet above the ground, then that means it took 3.54 seconds to drop from 1050 to 850. What is the domain? So we want the full domain, and so again, this is square root, so we're concerned about when the part underneath the square root sign is positive. So we want to know when this is going to be equal to, since this is negative, we want this to be negative 65.625. So, because this answer is going to be positive, when I divide, and h equals, so when this is going to be 0, we know that that's at 1050. And do we want numbers above 1050 or below? So if you remember, when this was, the negative was attached to the input variable that flipped our graph. So we have to think about which way it's going to flip it. It's actually going to flip it, so it's going to go to the left now, because we want, if we plugged in 1200, this number is going to be larger than 65, and that will make it negative underneath. So we want to make sure that the domain is going to be from negative infinity going to the left, less than h, which is less than or equal to 1050. Then the practical domain, well, practical would mean that we want this penny to hit the ground, so it's 0 less than or equal to h, which is less than or equal to 1050. So now we want to catch the penny 6 seconds after it's been released, so that means we want this thing equal to 6, equal to the square root of negative 0.0625h plus 65.625, and this will be in your y1, this will be in your y2, or in Desmos, f of x, and then y equals. Keep in mind that our input values are height and our output values are time, so your x values for your window are probably going to be, because it's height, so we want to go from 0 all the way up to maybe 1100. And if you're using a step of maybe 100, and then your y's, we're only talking about a short amount of time, so maybe 0 to 10, or 0 to 15, and you can count that by ones.